crystal halls of the underwater palace, King Poseidon of Okpunike sat on his throne, carved from a single giant pearl. Bioluminescent fish swam in graceful patterns around the coral columns, their light painting rainbow patterns on the walls. The water here was so pure, it felt like liquid diamond against the skin. Princess Aria's best friend, Naya, swam frantically through the palace gates, her silver tail flashing as she pushed herself through the water with desperate speed. The guards tried to stop her. No one approached the king without ceremony, but Naya's message was too urgent for protocol. "Your Majesty," she gasped, her gills fluttering with exhaustion. "Princess Aria is in terrible danger." The king's ancient eyes, deep blue like the ocean's heart, fixed on the young mermaid. Around his neck hung the sacred conch of truth legend, said it could reveal any lie. "Speak quickly, child. What threatens my daughter?" Naya's voice broke as she explained what her bird messenger had overheard by the Iroko tree. 2 human men plan to ambush her at dawn. They want to cut her sacred hair and sell it in their markets. Tears mixed with the salt water around her face. "Your Majesty, they don't understand. Without her hair, the princess can never return to us. She will be trapped in the human world forever." The king's face darkened like storm clouds over the ocean. In mermaid culture, hair was more than beauty. It was identity, power, and the very key to their underwater kingdom. Only hair, blessed by the ocean gods, could allow a mermaid to transform and breathe beneath the waves. To steal it was the cruelest violation imaginable. "Why has my daughter been going to the surface?" the king demanded. "She knows the old laws. Contact with humans brings nothing but sorrow." Naya's eyes dropped to the pearl-strewn floor. She had kept Aria's secret for months. How the princess loved to sing to the sunrise. How she felt trapped by the palace walls. How she dreamed of the world above the water. Naya had begged her friend to stay safe in the depths, but Aria's wild heart couldn't be contained. "She goes to sing, Your Majesty. She says the surface water carries her voice to the ancestors." "Yes." The king closed his eyes, his heart breaking. His daughter's voice was legendary, even among mermaids, a gift that came once in 1,000 years. But gifts, he knew, often became curses. "We must warn her," he said finally. "Send the dolphins. Tell her never to surface again." But even as he spoke, the king feared they were already too late. Dawn was only hours away, and Princess Aria had never missed a sunrise in her life. Would the warning reach her in time? The morning mist clung to the river like ancestral spirits reluctant to return to the other world. Marcus crouched behind the elephant grass, Derek's knife heavy in his sweating palm. His friend lay flat on his belly nearby, muscles coiled like a python ready to strike. "Remember," Derek whispered, his breath hot against Marcus's ear. "Quick and clean. Grab her, cut the hair, go." Marcus's heart pounded so loudly he was sure it would wake the entire village. Every shadow looked like his grandmother's disapproving spirit. Every sound made him jump like a grasshopper. But the thought of 50,000 naira medicine for his mother, school fees for Chinello, kept his trembling hands steady. The sun began its slow climb over the palm trees, painting the river gold and crimson. Right on time, bubbles appeared in the deep water. Then she emerged, rising from the depths, like a goddess born from the river itself. But this morning, Princess Aria looked troubled. She glanced around nervously, her otherworldly blue-green eyes scanning the riverbank. Had the dolphin messengers reached her? Had they warned her about the danger lurking in the grass? She began to sing, but her voice carried a note of sadness that made Marcus's chest tighten with unexpected guilt. Her hair flowed around her like liquid starlight, and for a moment he almost forgot why he was hiding. "Now!" Derek hissed. They exploded from their hiding place like wild boars crashing through the forest. Arya's song cut off in a gasp of terror as Derek's strong arms closed around her shoulders. She was smaller than Marcus had expected, more delicate, and when she looked up at him with those impossible eyes, he saw something that made his soul freeze. She wasn't afraid. She was heartbroken. "Please," she said in perfect Igbo, though her voice carried the music of ocean waves. "I know why you have come, but you don't understand what you're about to take from me." Derek's grip tightened. "Less talking, more cutting," he snapped at Marcus. With shaking hands, Marcus raised the knife to her glorious hair. It felt warm under his fingers, alive with some inner current. Arya closed her eyes, and a single tear rolled down her bronze cheek. "Without my hair," she whispered, "I can never go home, never see my father again, never swim with my sisters in the coral gardens. You are not just taking hair, you are taking my entire world." But Derek pressed harder, and Marcus, thinking of his sick mother and his sister's future, began to cut. The golden strands fell onto the muddy riverbank like fallen stars, and with each cut, Princess Arya seemed to fade a little, as if her very essence was being stolen away. What had they done? And what price would they pay for this terrible crime? The severed hair lay on the riverbank like spilled sunlight, more beautiful than anything Marcus had ever seen. But as soon as the last strand was cut, something changed. The air grew cold despite the morning warmth, and the river water began to churn as if stirred by invisible hands. Princess Arya slumped forward, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Where her magnificent hair once flowed, only a rough, uneven stubble remained. She looked smaller now, diminished, like a bird with clipped wings. "There," Derek said, scooping the golden hair into his cloth bag. "Finished. Now we go to the city and become rich men." But Marcus couldn't move. He stared at Arya's devastated face, at the way she seemed to be fading before his eyes. Her skin, once bronze and glowing, now looked ashen. Her blue-green eyes had lost their otherworldly light. "What have we done?" he whispered. Derek grabbed his arm roughly. "We have done what we needed to do. Come, before someone comes looking for her." They left Arya sitting by the water's edge, her head in her hands, her broken voice humming a lament so heartbreaking that even the birds stopped singing. As they walked away, Marcus looked back once and saw her trying to dive beneath the surface. But instead of disappearing into the depths, as she always did, she floated back up, gasping and choking. Without her hair, she could no longer breathe underwater. She was trapped in the human world, cut off from everything she had ever known. At the motor park in Onitsha, Derek clutched the bag of golden hair like it contained the secrets of the universe. "The Lebanese traders will pay us a fortune for this," he boasted to Marcus. "Real virgin hair, unprocessed. This color, we will be millionaires." But the first trader they approached took one look at the hair and stepped backward, his face pale with fear. "Where did you get this?" he demanded in broken English. "From a girl in our village," Derek lied smoothly. "She cut it to sell for school fees." The trader shook his head violently. No, this hair, it moves by itself. Look!" He pointed with a trembling finger. Marcus looked down and gasped. The golden strands in the bag were writhing like living snakes, glowing with an eerie light that hurt to look at directly. "This is cursed hair," the trader shouted, backing away. "Take it away from my shop! I want nothing to do with river spirit hair." One by one, every trader in the market refused to touch their treasure. Word spread quickly through the stores. 2 village boys had brought cursed hair that glowed and moved like it was alive. As the sun set over Onitsha, Marcus and Derek sat by the Niger River with their bag of worthless treasure, finally understanding the terrible truth. They had stolen something that was never meant for the human world. But how could they return it? And would Princess Aria ever forgive them for what they had done? Deep beneath the Ogbunike River, the coral palace buzzed with anger and sorrow. Princess Aria had finally made her way home, walking along the riverbed since she could no longer swim properly without her sacred hair. Her return should have been joyous, but instead, it felt like a funeral procession. King Poseidon sat on his pearl throne, his ancient face carved with lines of rage and heartbreak. Before him stood his daughter, shorn and diminished. And beside her, Naya, the friend who had tried to warn them but arrived too late. "My daughter!" The king's voice rode through the water like distant thunder. "You have broken the oldest law of our people. You surfaced too often. You made yourself vulnerable to the humans." And now, his voice broke as he looked at her roughly cut hair. "Now you have brought shame upon our kingdom." Princess Aria lifted her chin, trying to hold on to her dignity, even in her devastation. "Father, I only wanted to sing to the sunrise. I never meant for this to happen. Intent does not undo consequence," the king replied heavily. "The council of elders has already met. Until your hair is restored, until every strand is returned to your head by the very hands that stole it, you are banished from the underwater kingdom." Gasps echoed through the coral halls. Banishment was the cruelest punishment a mermaid could face, worse than death itself. To be cut off from the ocean depths, from family, from the very source of their power, it was unthinkable. Naya swam forward, her silver tail flashing with desperation. "Your Majesty, please! It wasn't Princess Aria's fault! Those humans tricked her, ambushed her like cowards!" But the king's decision was final. The law exists to protect us all. If we ignore it for royal blood, how can we expect others to follow it? He looked at his daughter with eyes full of love and sorrow. "I am sorry, my child. When your hair is whole again, you may return with honor. Until then," he gestured toward the palace gates. Princess Aria bowed deeply to her father, tears streaming down her face and dissolving into the salt water around them. "I understand, father. I will find a way to reclaim what was stolen." As she swam toward the surface for what might be the last time, Naya caught her arm. "Aria, I'm so sorry. If I had been faster, if I had warned you sooner." "You tried to save me," Aria said softly. "You are the truest friend I have ever known." But even as she spoke these words, a seed of doubt took root in Aria's heart. How had the humans known exactly where to find her? How had they known about the value of her hair? Someone had been watching her, learning her patterns. Could her best friend have somehow? No. She pushed the dark thought away. But trust, once cracked, is never quite the same again. What would Princess Aria do now, trapped between 2 worlds belonging to neither? Marcus couldn't sleep. For 3 nights, he had tossed on his mat while the bag of golden hair sat in the corner of his room, glowing softly in the darkness like captured moonbeams. The hair seemed to whisper in languages he didn't understand, and sometimes he swore he could hear the sound of ocean waves, even though they lived hundreds of miles from the sea. His mother noticed his sleepless nights and hollow eyes. "My son, what troubles you? You look like a man haunted by his ancestors' displeasure." But how could Marcus explain? How could he tell his mother that he had stolen the sacred hair of a river spirit? That every time he closed his eyes, he saw Arya's heartbroken face, heard her voice saying, "You are taking my entire world." Derek, meanwhile, had fallen sick with a fever that no medicine could touch. He spoke nonsense in his delirium, babbling about golden serpents and mermaids calling his name from the depths of the river. His skin had taken on a greenish tint, as if he was slowly transforming into something that belonged underwater. On the fourth night, Marcus made his decision. He grabbed the bag of hair and ran through the darkness toward Derek's compound. He found his friend sitting by the dying embers of a fire, shivering despite the warm night air. "Derek," Marcus said urgently, "we have to return it. All of it. Tonight." Derek looked up with eyes that seemed to swim with unshed tears. "I know," he whispered. "She came to me in dreams. She showed me her father's palace, her sisters weeping for her. Marcus, what we took, it wasn't just hair. It was her key to home." They walked to the river in silence, carrying their cursed treasure. The water was still as glass, reflecting the full moon like a silver mirror. For a long time, they sat on the bank, afraid to call out, afraid of what might answer. Finally, Marcus found his voice. "Princess," he called across the water. "Princess of the river, we have come to return what we stole." The water began to ripple, and slowly Arya emerged. But she looked nothing like the glorious creature they had first seen. Her hair was still roughly shorn, her skin pale and sickly. She moved like an old woman, as if the life had been drained from her bones. "You have returned," she said simply. Her voice no longer carried the music of ocean waves. It sounded flat, human, ordinary. Marcus fell to his knees at the water's edge. "Forgive us," he pleaded. "We were foolish and greedy. We didn't understand what we were taking from you." Derek joined him, placing the bag of golden hair at her feet like an offering. "We thought only of money. We didn't think of the person we were hurting." Be is ge be. Arya looked at the hair that had once been her crown, her pride, her very identity. "Understanding comes too late sometimes," she said sadly. "But perhaps it is not too late for redemption." She lifted the bag and began the long walk toward her father's underwater kingdom, where the hardest test of all awaited her. Would the magic still work? Could stolen hair, freely returned, restore what had been lost? The coral palace had never been so silent. Every mermaid, merman, and sea creature in the kingdom held their breath as Princess Arya knelt before her father's throne, the bag of returned hair clutched in her trembling hands. King Poseidon looked older than his 1,000 years, the weight of his decision etched in every line of his weathered face. The sacred conch of truth hung around his neck, glowing softly in the bioluminescent light of the palace halls. "My daughter," he said quietly, "you have returned what was stolen. But the question remains, can hair taken by force and greed, even if freely returned, restore what was lost?" Arya bowed her head. "Father, I don't know, but I had to try. For our people, for our kingdom, and," her voice broke slightly, "for myself." The king rose from his throne and descended the pearl steps slowly. Every step echoed through the vast hall like a heartbeat. When he reached his daughter, he gently took the bag from her hands. The golden hair spilled out like liquid starlight, still glowing with its inner fire. But now there was something different about it, a warmth that hadn't been there before. The hair that had writhed like angry serpents in the human market now flowed gently, peacefully, as if it had found its way home. King Poseidon lifted the hair with reverent hands. "The ancestors are speaking," he murmured. "They say that true magic lies not in the taking, but in the returning, not in the stealing, but in the repentance." As he placed the golden strands on his daughter's head, something miraculous happened. The hair began to weave itself back onto her scalp, strand by strand, growing and flowing until it was exactly as it had been before, perhaps even more beautiful than before. But the greatest miracle was in Arya's eyes. The blue-green depths returned, along with the inner light that made her more than human. Her bronze skin glowed with health and power. Her voice, when she spoke, once again carried the music of ocean waves. "Father," she whispered, testing her voice, marveling at the return of its magic. The king embraced his daughter as the palace erupted in celebration. Dolphins sang, whales trumpeted their joy, and the very coral walls seemed to pulse with happiness. Later, as the festivities continued, Naya approached her friend cautiously. "Arya, can you ever forgive me? I should have stopped you from surfacing so often. I should have—" "You tried to save me," Arya interrupted gently. "You sent warnings. You tried to protect me. True friends don't need to be perfect. They just need to be loyal." She smiled, though something in her eyes remained guarded. Trust, once broken, takes time to heal completely. But love endures. Meanwhile, on the surface, Marcus and Derek knelt by the riverbank, watching the celebration lights dancing beneath the water. The curse had been lifted from them the moment the hair was restored, but something more important had changed: their hearts. "We could have destroyed her completely," Marcus said quietly. "For money, for greed." Derek nodded, his face serious. "But she forgave us anyway, even after what we did." From that day forward, both young men became protectors of the river, warning other villagers about the sacred creatures that lived beneath the waves. They found honest work and used their earnings to help their families, never again tempted by the false promise of easy wealth. Princess Arya still surfaces sometimes at dawn, but now she sings songs of forgiveness and redemption. Her voice carries across the water, reminding all who hear it that the greatest treasures cannot be stolen. They must be earned through love, respect, and understanding. And in the villages along the Ogbunike River, parents tell their children the story of the mermaid's hair, teaching them that what we take by force will never truly belong to us, but what we give freely will return to us 100-fold. The river flows on, carrying this wisdom to the sea, where it joins the eternal song of truth that echoes through all the waters of the world. True wealth comes not from what we can take from others, but from what we can give. Greed may promise quick riches, but it always extracts a higher price than we expect to pay. Forgiveness has the power to restore what seems forever lost. And sometimes the greatest treasure is learning to see the humanity in others, even when they don't look or seem like us.